West Virginia plays football this weekend, this Friday. I guess you can count as the weekend, and we're going to roll it. This is the WVSports.com podcast, Musings from the Mountains. And I am senior writer / managing editor / content producer, Keenan Cummings.
And I'm staff writer, Patrick Kotnik. I only have one title to my name.
Yeah, you're not as special as me. I got a closet full of them that I can use at various times. It's what you've all been waiting for all season long. Duggan versus Daggy, Volume 1. There you go. Yeah, it's like a prized fight. Two quarterbacks that did not start for their teams to start the year are starting in the last game of the season. And West Virginia's hitting the road to take on the TCU Horned Frogs and Gary Patterson. Mountaineers are 4-4 against TCU all time. Won the last one. They did win the last one. Game's going to be played at 4:15 on Friday. Important to note, I'm going to say again Friday, for all you guys that show up Saturday to tailgate at local spots, and the game's already been played. It'll be Friday at 4:15. Game will be on ESPN. This TCU team is a lot like some of their other TCU teams. Play good defense, 4 down front. They create a lot of havoc with their interior guys. They have good athletic linebackers, get in space, play matching coverage in the back end. Kind of zone on one side, man on the other. They'll match it. That's what they do. They're very good at it. Every year it seems like you're talking about this TCU team as one of the top 1 or 2 or 3 defenses in this league. Yeah,
when you think Gary Patterson, TCU, and his TCU teams that he's had, you think defense. It's going to be interesting. One of the matchups that I'm most looking forward to is seeing how this West Virginia passing game matches up against their secondary. Secondary, mostly all upperclassmen. They're experienced. We've seen what West Virginia can do against a top Big 12 secondary. We saw what they were able to do against Kansas State, which was Daggy's first start for West Virginia. So that's one intriguing matchup that I think that will come out of this matchup between West Virginia and TCU.
Yeah, TCU held Oklahoma under 30 points. That's a big number. That's the first time that's happened in 20 games. Some of that was on Oklahoma, making some mistakes in the red zone, but you got to credit TCU for what they were able to do. Lost a close one in Norman, which, as West Virginia can testify to, is not easy to play well there. Oklahoma's a very good football team. This TCU football team, they create turnovers. They don't blitz a lot, though. They only blitz around 19% of the time. They blitzed 1 snap against Oklahoma. Now, that could be a little bit different. Obviously, Jarrett Daggy's not going to be confused for Jalen Hurts, but they're not overly aggressive. What they do is they pretty much play straight up and beat you. They use their athleticism, and they use some guys inside that are disruptive and really are able to kind of create some things for what their front does, similar to what you see out of West Virginia. I think that's the takeaway for their front. Linebackers athletic can run, secondary covers. So it's a formula to cause some problems.
And both teams are really in two different situations. You look at TCU being 5-6, still very hungry to be bowl eligible, get that 6th win. And if you're West Virginia, bowl is most likely out of the equation right now with 7 losses after suffering that last loss to Oklahoma State. So if you're West Virginia, there's more of an approach to enjoy this week, especially for the 22 seniors. But also go out on a high note. Give something to feel good about going into the offseason. Obviously, this is a program that, despite all the departures, despite all the underclassmen seeing some playing time, that they've really progressed. I feel like over this season, but at the same time, there's still been a lot of growing pains. But I feel like a win for West Virginia sent out on a high note would be huge for this program.
Look at them offensively. They are kind of a spread attack. They will spread you out and try to run the football a lot. Duggan only threw for 65 yards, I believe, at Oklahoma, but he ran the ball effectively. His touchdown run, if you have not seen it, go watch the highlights. That was a grown man's run. That's how you get the ball in close to the red zone. I think that West Virginia could take a lesson from that, obviously. He's more of a running type, but he can throw the ball. He's been effective throwing the ball downfield at times. 15 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. Really what stood out to me is kind of his toughness. He's a kid that's going to run the ball. He takes a lot of hits. They design runs for him. So he's going to run the ball pretty much on design runs as much as he does scrambles and take advantage of that. He's got an excellent wide receiver, Jalen Reagor. West Virginia fans know who that is. He's had a lot of success against West Virginia in the past. Big play guy. They'll use him down the field. He has not connected with him as much as you'd expect, probably only around 50% of the time, probably a little bit under that. But when he does catch the football, it's typically a big play. A lot of his things are either getting the ball down the field or getting the ball short and turning it into a big play. So that's what West Virginia has to watch for in their passing game. They'll use their tight end, Pro Wells. So I always feel like I have to make notice of that because every time we talk about the tight end on our Blue Lot message board, people are saying, West Virginia always gets beat by the tight end. So every week I try to reference if teams will use them, they will use him. He's second on the team in receiving touchdowns, I believe. So they're going to use him in that capacity.
Yeah, and offensively for TCU, I think the one thing that sticks out, like you said, Keenan, is Duggan's toughness. He said he's a freshman, but he's had some of those growing pains. But there's also a lot to like with them. Only 65 passing yards, like you mentioned, against Oklahoma, but he can also run the ball effectively at times as well. Yeah,
they have a two-headed backfield. Darius Anderson is still there. Seems like Darius Anderson has been there for 45 years. He's still there for TCU, leads the team in rushing. They're going to ground and pound a lot. This is a team that likes to run the ball when they can. They like to create kind of space with what they do with the wide receivers, spread people out and then run the football. So it's going to be interesting to see how West Virginia's defense matches up with that. What defensive set Vic Koenig decides to go with. We've seen 4-man, we've seen 3-man, and really it's taking its toll on time on this defensive line because they're playing a lot of snaps. Mm-hmm. The last 2 games, this group's played way more snaps than a defensive line should probably play. A lot of the same guys. Really, Dante Stills has been the only guy kind of subbing in with any.
Well, I mean, and you can see it a lot during the Oklahoma State game late in the fourth quarter. You just saw not only the defensive line, but just the defense as a whole. We saw what Oklahoma State was able to do in the past game, just work the field, work the boundary, get the ball out quickly out of the quarterback's hands. He said it's asking a lot for the D linemen to play as many snaps as they have, but that's what comes. That's been the story for West Virginia a lot. With having to play some of these guys.
Yeah, and TCU is an experienced offensive line. A lot of guys that have played a lot of football. Vic Koenig said it might be the best offensive line they've played all year. I don't know if I buy that, but I do think that they're pretty good. They've got a lot of experienced guys. They haven't allowed a lot of pressures. When they do allow pressure, it's typically on the quarterback for holding on to the ball. So West Virginia's going to have their challenge kind of trying to go up against the TCU offense. They're 5-6. Patrick mentioned they got a lot to play for. They still have a bowl game in sight. They're at home. West Virginia's won in Fort Worth before, so it's not impossible. And I do think that you're 5-6 for a reason, just like West Virginia's 4-7 for a reason. So this will be an interesting game for a lot of different reasons. Looking at the prediction angle of this, I think that I've been wrong in the last couple weeks, but I think I'm going to have to take TCU. I think West Virginia plays well in this game. I do think they play well. I'm encouraged by what I've seen the last couple weeks, even with the losses. Not encouraged with the first half against Texas Tech, obviously, but the way they closed that game, the way they rebounded at Kansas State, and then the way they played against Oklahoma State, which was a very winnable football game until things got away from them. I think they play well. I think that extra push that TCU has at home. If this game was in Morgantown, I'd take West Virginia. But I think TCU is going to escape something to the tune of 28-24.
I was going to say I was going to take TCU 24-21. I really do think West Virginia, they've been playing well on the road. Yeah, obviously they were able to pull off an upset win in a tough road environment like Kansas State. They were able to play well on the road in Waco against Baylor, against a 12th ranked Baylor team at that time. But I just feel like West Virginia, it's the same issues that are plaguing them on offense. I do expect defense to most likely carry this team against TCU in that road environment, but with this offense, yeah, they've got more production, a more consistent positive production out of the quarterback position with Jared Dagey behind center. But it's the same issues that have been plaguing them that the past couple weeks that they've had all year: drop passes, inability to get the run game going. And I feel like those issues are still going to be present when they take on TCU.
Yeah, and I think that kind of showed what Neil has been talking about for most of the year. Against Oklahoma State, a lot of people thought you were magically going to put Jared Dagey in there, and West Virginia was going to start running for 130 yards a game. No, it didn't happen. They rushed for 26 yards against Oklahoma State.
22 carries.
And that inability to run the football has been the biggest hindrance in the red zone for this team all year. Because when things get tight down there, if you can't run, you can't score. And that's been the problem all year.
We saw it against Oklahoma State. They had the ball on the 1 yard line. Yeah, that could have been a real touchdown. To Sam James before that, but 2 unsuccessful quarterback sneaks and then a false start penalty, then incomplete pass. I mean, that's a very ugly sequence right there.
That has to be something that's addressed in the offseason. Getting guys stronger, getting some more players in here, whether it be transfers, junior college players, whatever. You got to address things up front. And if it doesn't get better up front, it won't get better overall. Because honestly, this team's rushed for 51 yards or fewer 7 of 11 games. That is insane. There's a very realistic chance this team won't even hit 1,000 yards as a team rushing. And that's just unacceptable. And I think Neil Brown will be the first person to tell you that. But time helps with those things. The development helps, and we'll see if it helps. Maybe this week West Virginia catches some fire and is able to run a little bit. They did have a little success against Kansas State in the first half, so it's not impossible. But I do think this is a good football game. I think you guys will have fun watching it. Perhaps West Virginia steals one. We'll wait and see. But we'll be back. We'll kind of recap what goes on after the holiday break. Wish you all a happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for tuning in. If this is your first time, hit subscribe. We do this stuff a lot. We have a lot of fun with it. I hope you do as well. But thanks for tuning in again to another edition of Musings from the Mountains.